YouTube. So we're here today with a couple of very special gentlemen who I've just got a chance to meet recently. As most of you know, Daniel's video to Justice John Roberts went super viral, and one of the unexpected pluses that came from that was some very cool folks at Lucasfilm reached out to us to say, hey, we think you like Star Wars. And one of the gentlemen who contacted us was somebody who I've looked up to for a long time, and it is Steven Sansweet, who has been, what was your official title? Director
of Content Management and Head of Fan Relations.
And Head of Fan Relations. That's how I have known Steven for a long time, because he's there at every convention and Star Wars celebration, being the go-between between Lucasfilm and the fans. And he also has, now these days, retired from Lucasfilm and runs Rancho Obi-Wan, which is the biggest Star Wars museum in the world, short of my office and garage. One thing I didn't know about this person who had been in and out of my life through books that I had purchased along the way was that Steve was gay. And when I found out,
God!
I was like, no way! And he's been together with Bob for how long?
It'll be 37 years in a week. I'm a saint.
He always has to get that line in first, or I'll...
Well, it's true.
Yeah.
So it was sort of like a double mind-blowing thing for me. So they're here to kind of chat with us for a little bit, and the first question I have
You are
is,
who?
Huh? They know who. They don't care about
Oh,
me.
okay.
They're here for you guys.
Sure.
So almost 37 years. How do you make that happen?
With a lot of work. I mean, relationships are never easy, whether they're straight, gay, or any other kind of relationships. Mm-hmm. And people have strong personalities usually. Both people in a couple, especially two guys or two women. And so it's something you're always adjusting and, finding out about the other person and, either saying, you know what, this really doesn't work for me, or, okay, I can live with that, or you reach a compromise. And we both have different strong traits that work very well together.
Well, what kinds of strong traits? How do you guys work together as a couple?
Well, Bob is much more social than I am, and I think without Bob, making sure we go visit people and stay in touch with people, and we just went to Palm Springs this weekend. So why don't you talk a little about?
Well, yeah, I'm not as fanatical about Star Wars as Steve is.
You're not fanatical at all about Star Wars.
Well,
I mean, you like Star Wars.
I like Star Wars, but I'm not so, the constancy of running this place and devoting your lifetime to Star Wars endeavors and everything. I have other pursuits. And like, for instance, we haven't seen friends in years down south, Southern California. Well, I've seen them, but Steve hasn't because of work and travel and the museum. But I said, I would like to take a break for a change. So I took us down to Palm Springs to visit several friends. We saw a show, went to dinners, and we had a great visit. And I just want to connect with people who are not in the Star Wars universe. And
there are no people like that.
No, I know. Well, to me, it isn't.
There are one or two out there, but according to the latest announcement from Disney, there probably won't be in the next 7 years, with a movie a year from 2015 through 7 movies, 5 movies.
And then add in possible TV shows. I don't think there'll be a human being left alive.
I don't think so. I don't think so. You'll have to willfully ignore Star Wars.
All right. So, now, 37 years of marriage. We just did a video about how Jay and I don't get along, and sometimes we fight, and we just sort of did it there for everybody to see.
We've never fought once.
Because we're like the Jerry Springer of YouTube. When you guys obviously disagree with each other, is it something that goes on for days? How do you resolve your conflict?
No. Steve said that in the beginning. we will never go to bed angry, and that's really been true. And we've had some, you know.
There have been 1 or 2 times over all those years, but for the most part.
Oh yeah, but yeah, well, for the most part, it's been really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, you talk it out. You may go to bed a little upset, but yeah, I mean that's sort of the basic rule. We try to end the day at least talking to each other.
That sounds blissfully reasonable.
And it doesn't happen. It doesn't really happen that often. I mean, we have our life together, and we have our separate lives. Bob writes plays and screenplays. He worked for Disney for 14 years when we were in Los Angeles. I was a reporter and then a bureau chief for the Wall Street Journal until I left for Lucasfilm. So we had careers, we shared a life together, and you know, and now Star Wars is my life basically. Bob is now writing his plays and screenplays, and then we have, as I said, the joint life.
So we had dinner not too long ago, and we had a really nice conversation about how you guys met. I was wondering if you might retell that story.
That's the Bob story. He does it much better.
Well, back in LA, on a Saturday afternoon, I went to my barber for a haircut, and I sat down in the chair, and the barber said, he was gay too, he said, I just had a customer here who just left, and he's written a book, and he's a writer, you're a writer, maybe you should, you know, meet. And I said, well, that'd be interesting, you know, because I would love to meet another writer, especially one who's had a book published. So
let me point out at this stage that the barber had been trying to set me up because I was single for several years. Every time it was a disaster, and I had warned him that if he ever tried that again, it would, you know, that would be the end of our real friendship. So, go on.
Okay, but I didn't know this because this was the first setup that Richard, or Dolly Levi as I call him, you know, put me through. So I went to Pickwick Bookstore on Hollywood Boulevard, got the book. It was called The Punishment Cure, and it was quite interesting. I really liked it. But Richard said, how about coming to our house Tuesday, and you'll meet my lover, and we'll have dinner. So I said, sure, that sounds great. So that's why I bought the book, so I'd know what to talk about when I met him. So I get there on a Tuesday, and there's like 8 guys there. And I meet everybody. Steve's at the far end of the room, and he's chatting with people there. And I'm at this side of the room chatting with a couple of guys. And then Richard says, well, let's go to dinner. And I'm playing back in my head what he said in the barbershop. Why don't you come to our house and we'll have dinner? And I thought it was an invitation there for dinner. So I go to the bathroom and I look at my wallet and I have a $10 bill. And I said, well, I guess if I buy something cheap, not have a drink, I can do it. So we go to this place on Santa Monica, and I ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a burger, and nothing else, and I had just enough for a tip. And we finished dinner, and I hadn't said a word to Steve. He was the opposite side of the room with the same people he was chatting with. So Richard says, let's go to Studio One, which was a big disco at the time. So I said, no, tomorrow's a school day, and I'm going to go. Steve lived in Marina del Rey, and he said he had to leave, and he had work the next day. So he didn't have a car. He went with Richard. I think he went with Richard, right?
Yeah. Probably drove over, left it at his
So
car.
he left his car at Richard's house, so I drove him back to his car, and we sat in the car for half an hour and chatted, and we made a date for later on. And
he had said the magic words. I bought your book.
and
I thought, this has possibilities. And also I think you had I had written a front page story for the Wall Street Journal on The Advocate. And The Advocate had just been taken over by David Goodstein, who had been an executive on Wall Street, and so the Journal found that sort of interesting. It also brings me back to the time when the Journal and most other papers were reluctant to use the word gay. So in the editing of the story, we had some problems over things like the homosexual pride parade.
That rolls off terrifically.
Homosexual bars and things. I lost that one, but I won the gay pride parade, so it was 50-50.
Well, at least we came out ahead there.
Yeah, right.
So when did it become love?
I think our first attempt to date was a bit of a disaster, and I had, at the Journal, I was getting a lot of passes for screeners for movies, and I invited Bob along, and he said he was tied up that night, and so I went to the Directors Guild Theater to see this movie with another friend, and the movie breaks, and who do I see there walking out with someone else but Bob? So we said hi. And then we tried again a couple of months later. So that was like in February. And then we tried again in April. And that was really our first date. And we've been together ever since.
Do you remember the two movies?
Well, yeah, the first one was the Schwarzenegger movie. Pumping Iron. And then it was That's Entertainment 2 or 3. Right.
Yeah.
Which was
I think it was 2.
2.
Yeah.
Great. So now, Jay and I first got together, and one of the things that we did was go hunt for Star Wars toys. So we've always been able to sort of be on an equal level with that. So as a long-suffering Star Wars spouse, how do you put up with Steve's addiction?
He was on a panel.
I was about to say that.
At Celebration. It was originally titled Star Wars Widows.
Yeah.
So we got them to change it a little to, long-suffering Star Wars partners or something like that.
Yeah. Well, finish your...
Yes,
no, that was the question.
How do you
how do you cope?
It's nothing to cope with. It happens, and it's it's his favorite thing to do. So I don't have a problem with it. I enjoy his excitement and his joy about finding a new piece. And for me, the fun I get out of it and the joy I get out of it is meeting people. Many of them have become really good friends in Spain and England and Japan and
Mexico
and God knows where. And that's the fun for me. And then we go visit them or they come visit us. And it's a very social thing for me that way. I don't know the Star Wars lingo as well as they do, but there are other things that we can talk about. Jeremy Bulloch is one of my favorite people in the Star Wars cast.
Boba Fett in case, but I'm sure everybody.
And Peter Mayhew and his wife and
Chewbacca.
Yeah, thank you. So they're wonderful pluses for me as well.
Well, and to be frank, I love all this stuff, and I've been a collector all my life of something or other. But for me, it's the people. It's my fellow fans that really makes this all worthwhile. And the reason why Rancho Obi-Wan was set up as a nonprofit organization, so we could bring people here who were strangers and have tours that I lead and tell all the stories. I mean, my mind is filled with all these anecdotes from 35, 36 years of Star Wars. And that to me is the fun, is both having people that I've known coming here from all over the world or meeting new people, becoming friends with new people, sharing the passion.
Hey, I want to say thank you, gentlemen, for coming.
You're welcome.
We're Stephen Sansweet and Bob Canning, and we're here at Rancho Obi-Wan, and we took the tour here. We had 2 hours to go through, and it went like that, and I was wishing I had another 2 hours. So I recommend it to anybody who wants to take the trip, and thank you guys for coming.
You can go online, ranchoobiwan.org, and get all the information. And thank you, and I think we've made some new friends.
Yeah,
May the Force be with you.
May the 4th be with you.
Oh, that's true.
Right. Bye, YouTube.
Bye.
And I believe that our love found its way through the current as the way